Gentlemen, you know that sound. That means Offside Hockey Talk is on the airwaves, and we're sitting down today with JD Bunkis. We're going to talk about, of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously, a big game tonight against the Boston Bruins. Trade deadline is looming. Matt Murray is now injured again, air quotes, and we'll see what happens. But JD, how's your day treating you?
Good, fellas. Sorry, I just realized that my camera looks really dark. I should have. Give me 1 sec.
No
my day is good. My day is good.
He's like the Dark Knight, man. The Dark Knight of the hockey world, hiding in the shadows.
Yeah, I'll try. Hold on, let's see if that's better. I think I set up there. Is that better?
That's way better. There you go.
All right. Yeah. Now, like, I looked normal, and then all of a sudden it went to air, and then I just went like right into the shadows. That was intense. What's up? What's up?
Not too much, buddy. I'm just excited to have you on. Obviously, we talked a couple of years ago now when the pandemic was going about the direction of the Leafs and stuff. So I'm going to rehash that question. This season, the expectations are at least have to do something in the playoffs, have to go somewhere. Do you see a difference in this team from last year and even the year previous that may you believe that this team can do something?
No, I'm kidding. Okay. There's a few things. It's just such Groundhog Day with these guys. And a lot of that is because, they're going to end up facing Tampa. Like, we all know it, right? And so it's like, I'm not trying to be apathetic and I'm not trying to be a downer, but there's nothing that could happen that is going to make that not a coin toss series, right? Like, is there a move at the debt? Like, let's say something crazy shit happens, right? Let's say that the Leafs get Timo Meier and Erik Karlsson. Like, they find a way. They do the craziest thing. Like, do you really feel that it's like, what, 60% chance the Leafs win that series against Tampa? Like, there's still the Tampa Bay Lightning. And so, like, I do Leafs talk, and I talk about them every single day, and I try to give them credit where I do think that they're different. I think that they're more mature. I like to believe that they're playing better defensively as a group. I think that they're more that they're better suited to win low-scoring, low-event hockey games than they have been in years past. I'm impressed by Samsonov. But, like, when all of the chips are down and you want my true honesty, it's like, this is what sucks about this season, and this is what sucks about the flat cap era, is that you're going to get into a coin toss series with an incredibly good team in a playoff format that's broken, and I have a really hard time selling to anybody that I feel like dramatically different that this year they'll beat Tampa. Like, I think that they are one of the best 5 teams in the NHL, and that they are they're the most punished team in hockey with their playoff format and their salary cap situation.
Yeah, no, definitely those two things going against them is never good. I look at this, though, and I say, well, take a step back and look at the Tampa Bay Lightning for a second, though. No more Andre Palat. No more Ryan McDonough. 2 big key cogs that were a part of that playoff series win last year, and also the runs they've gone on. I know they bring in extra pieces and they sprinkle them in. Hello, Nick Paul, 2 goals in Game 7. But I do think the Leafs, now knowing what your opponent's going to be, I think they will make a couple corresponding moves. A couple guys that I think of is Noel Acciari on the St. Louis Blues, a guy that can hit, guy that can put a couple goals in for you, add a little grit in the bottom 6 for you, maybe Sam Lafferty out of Chicago. But that's what I think they need to do. Is it great to go get another top 6 scorer? I think so. You see them a little exposed with Matthews out. But what do you think? I know we're talking coin toss here, but what do you think that they should be going after here? I think it's to upgrade the bottom 6 a little bit, more so than the top 6.
I like that argument. I think if you listen to my show, the JD Bunkis podcast, subscribe and review, that I've been talking for a long time about Taves. And I've gotten back mixed reports on him. Like, I've talked to guys who play with him that think he would get an incredible shot in the arm by going to a new place like Toronto, that he still has a lot of juice left in the tank. I've heard people that watch a lot of him on a daily basis say that there is a bit of a notable decline, that you don't know for sure what you're getting. But to me, like, adding a little bit of center depth with some sandpaper and a guy who can score in a big time way, that to me is like still a very attractive option for the Leafs, especially given that they're in a weird spot, right? Because they really only have Matthew Nyes in the cupboards. Like, Leaf fans can delude themselves into believing that Topi Niemela and, Roni Hirvonen and Nick Robertson have all this crazy value. It's like, I can tell you conclusively, having spoken to like a multitude of people around the league, that like they don't. Like they are not viewed as plus prospects that other teams are clamoring for. Yeah, sure, you might be able to throw one of those guys into a deal, but that's not like getting anything done. Then you factor in like the pick limitations that they have, right? No second. Their first is going to be a little bit lower, right? Everyone looked at the framework of that deal with Horvat and they went, well, I would do the Leafs in a B prospect and a middle six guy. It's like, yeah, except for that could be the 13th pick in the draft, plus unprotected the next year for a bad team, whereas the Leafs are going to be like a guaranteed lock as a perennial great regular season team to be, in the high 20s. So I think I'm with you in the sense of I'd like to see maneuvers for the bottom six. I am pretty crazy about Timo Meier. I think he's a really good player. I think he'd be a perfect fit for this team. I just think Toronto is going to be like in a position where if they make a move like that, it's going to come down to Matthew Nyes. And are you going to trade Matthew Nyes for a rental? To me, you can't, even though he's like probably 3 years away at best from being the kind of impact player that they need right now. They might get something from him. They might get a little bit, but relying on him as though he's the savior for this season, I think is kind of nutso talk. So yeah, I think that it's like I've resigned myself to a Jake McCabe type, you're not in on Jake Dillon? Yeah,
no, I'm not feeling Jake. Just because of the fact you have Austin Matthews coming up, William Nylander coming up. Even if Chicago retains half, or we find a team to come in for the third mix, and you get it down to 50% all the way, it's still a guy that's got so much term.
But I thought Jake McCabe was only 2 more years.
Is it 2 or is it 4?
I thought it was 2 more years at 4.
Oh, you might be right. I might have the numbers backed up in my head.
Yeah, I think maybe we have it backwards or one of us does. But anyway, like the way I see it is like they're going to make some moves around the fringes. And I think that they're going to try to add a little bit of sandpaper, a little bit of grit, a little bit of, playoff type of player. And that the big swings, like Elliot Friedman has said, he thinks Dubas wants to make one. If you take Matthew Nyes out of the equation for this team, right? And I know there's no guarantees Matthews resigns and Nylander resigns. Maybe these next 2 years are your best shot. But if you take Matthew Nyes out of the equation, like you have no hope over the next couple of seasons of hitting on a young contract that just like over does his value by a massive amount. I hate it because normally I'm actually more of I'm not an all-in guy come deadline times because I think that stupid moves do get made around this time of the year. And you look back on so many examples, but let's look at just the last couple of years of teams that have won and teams that have done things at the deadline. It's like, it's worked out for them. People love pointing to the horror stories. They don't like pointing to the Haggles of the world that come in and really help. Right. Absolutely. So I feel like I hate when people do this to me when I'm on my shows, which is kind of give these pick a middle fence thing. But I do believe that with the Leafs, it's like, if you take a big swing with Nyes, it has to be for a player with term. It has to be with somebody that's, the other organization is eating some money and you're getting value, not this year, but also next. I don't like the idea of doing a rental. If you're going to move other guys, I don't really care about any other asset, the first round pick, anybody that's in the organization. I think I'm even open to the idea of moving Rasmus Sandin for the right price. But I think I'm with you more so as I believe that it's just an easier path forward to add to the bottom six, and that maybe just having a little bit more depth there, a little bit more nastiness, a guy who can score a dirty goal, a defenseman that can eat a heavy minute and kill a cycle in the corner. Maybe those are the places where they can still find a little bit of extra value, just like they did last year, grabbing Gio for the 2.
Yeah. Now, look, I look at Giordano, but you hit the nail on the head just a second ago. You talked about Hagel. What did the Tampa Bay Lightning go and do? They went and got guys for their bottom 6, Nick Paul. They went and got Brandon Hagel. They're also guys that can play up your lineup if you need them as well. Not saying Noel Akari can do that, but I will say that if you have him in your bottom 6, it's better than options you have right now.
Yeah, I don't like the Leafs bottom 6. I think that they I guess Nyes is going to come in potentially, and he's a spot. But again, that's a lottery ticket at this point. But to me, it's like, even if you're taking a swing and adding up top, and maybe that does bump somebody down. I don't know how people feel about Yarncroc in the bottom 6, because he's been awesome, top 6, horrific bottom 6.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty clear, like the current group of guys, the in and outs of the Bobby McMahons of the world, as much as, you enjoy those stories for a hot second, it's like this team's trying to win a cup. And I'm not sure that Engvall, Kampf, and like little pieces, and Alex Kerfoot is going to get that done.
We'll talk about Dingwall in a second, because obviously he's a lightning rod this year. Make him the Jake Gardner of the situation, because everybody's
100%.
got an opinion on him, right, left, or center. But I'm wondering about these guys coming in and out of the lineup. You talk about McMahon, there's Anderson coming in, just different names that keep coming in and out of this lineup. I'm wondering if the Leafs are trying to showcase some of these guys as NHL-ready options to put into trades. I know, but teams always want a warm body, right? So teams always want something back. So you see it, they want an NHL roster player or a young NHL roster player. Well, McMahon would fit that bill.
Yeah.
Anderson would fit that bill. If you could showcase what they can do to a team that may not be on the upswing anymore and looking to have someone in their lineup, and then fill it in with the B-level prospect. Fill it in with the third-round pick from Ottawa, which is going to be high, in the third round, because, Ottawa's not doing so hot. That you got.
I don't see it. I think that the league has a pretty good handle of low upside guys, and like this is one of the problems with the NHL right now, is like you go around the league and you can pluck any kind of Bobby McMahon from the Bobby McMahon tree, basically. Like every team has these guys, and I don't think that other organizations like really value them in that particular way, right? Like, what did the Leafs get back for Josh Levo that one season? Do you guys remember? Like Josh Levo was a guy who could actually like score the odd goal. He had size, Babcock didn't love him, so he fell down. Like that's a higher pedigree dude. And I don't remember him netting very much. I think it was like a lower tier prospect that came back for him that maybe never even had an impact with the organization. Like I like you said it, they want warm bodies, but to me, it's like none of those guys you mentioned have proven they can do anything at the NHL level consistently. And they're kind of widely regarded as 4A prospect types, where it's like they really help the AHL team. Yeah. They can play for you in a pinch, but I don't think any general manager around the league is getting excited about the idea of those guys like in their bottom 6 as a staple, right? Steves, whatever. Those guys, like they're just dudes that you have to have in your organization, and especially one for the Leafs, where they can step up for you in a pinch, give you a little bit of something. But once you start going into like game 6, 7, 8 of those guys, you start to go, oh, this guy like really is nothing special. And I don't mean to take a shot at those guys, because it's a real tough sled trying to make the NHL. Like they deserve all the credit in the world for getting there. But no, my understanding of all of those dudes is like, yeah, maybe they're bottom 6 in a pinch guys, but mostly quad 4A players.
Well, now I want to ask the question. This season, with this iteration of the Maple Leafs, outside of the star guys, are there 3 people you can point out that have impressed you, that you're like, okay, going into this season, I didn't think you were going to be able to do so?
Well, my number one guy I would say is William Nylander, who he's just like unlocked the consistency quotient. Yep. I've always been a Nylander guy-ish, right? Like I never was so nuts about him that I wouldn't identify the flaws. And I thought it was crazy that like his hardcore fans would ignore things like Sheldon Keefe saying, hey, he needs to be more consistent. He's done that this year. He's been brilliant. Like night in, night out, the guy is just a terror, scoring goals, playing a little bit more physical, not afraid to engage on the boards. I think that obviously the haters were always way over the top with Nylander. Like they acted as though he was Pierre Engvall. And it's like, no, he was never that. Yeah. But he's probably impressed me more than anyone, even though like I already thought he was a really good player. I just think like he's taken a real leap as a guy. And like, if we're talking about reasons to believe that this team is different or reasons to feel like this team is different, I think like his progress is just something to really note. I'm surprised that Tavares hasn't taken a step back at all, like that he's looked as good as he has basically all season. There was a little blip about a month ago where the production started to fall a little, and I worried. But for the most part, I do think he deserves credit for being so steady into his 30s and still being that same guy. And then I'll do 4 because I know I'm doing all the top guys right now, but I am really impressed that Bunting has been able to just like maintain his level and that it's not a fluke, like
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, I can swear on this, right?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think a lot of people shit on Bunting because he's a diver and people hate that. If you're if you're a hockey fan of a certain age, like drives you nuts to watch him, get spilled and talk trash and not drop the mitts. But he's had a couple moments this year where he's really stuck up for teammates. He's just been like the yappy dog that I think drives other teams nuts. He's not afraid of dirty areas.
No.
He'll talk shit, which I love. He jumped in for Matthews at one point this year. He's still scoring a bunch of goals. He can play with top 6 guys. Like, I think he weirdly this year, because he got way too much where people put him in the Calder conversation, even though like he's my age, it was nuts. But I actually think now he's almost been like a little underappreciated. It's like Leaf fans don't want to talk about him because they're terrified he's going to get too much money and walk away. But he's had a really, really solid year. And I've been super impressed that it's like no step backwards, maintain the same thing. Like he was not a flash in the pan fluke. He's like what he is what he is. And then I'll give the bonus one of just like, damn, there's actually a bunch of guys like Timothy Liljegren has taken a step that I never saw coming.
Yeah.
Like I was a Liljegren straight up hater when he started his career as a Leaf. I was like, there's just no way that I'll ever like this guy. And now like after Giordano and like Brody, it's like, like Kevin Papetti keeps tweeting out like this guy's never on the ice for 5-on-5 goals against. He's just been dominant in this regard. He's like a complete guy, good off the rush, can snap the puck around, kind of like a cool, calm demeanor. I'm so unbelievably impressed by the guy. Like, I think like if you're looking at, hey, reasons to believe in like, or the things that the Leafs have hit on that have just overdone their value, he had some nerd numbers that showed that he kind of had this in him in protected areas. But now it's like, this dude looks like a stud, like a bona fide stud who can get more of a role. So those are my 4 guys that I think like weirdly don't get enough. Well, Nylander gets a lot of credit this year.
He's getting a lot of, well, this year, his 200-foot game too has gotten better.
No, but like those
he'll
are the
never
guys
be a guy that goes in the corners, but he'll definitely now on the back check, he's back there. Where before he was always flying and you see him on the peripheral and then get ready to rush. But now 100%. He's back there and in it. So I like that. And that's something that, again, will help you in the playoffs. Hopefully that consistency rolls through the last half of the season and into the playoffs for him too. A guy for me, and Dylan, you probably share this with me too, David Kampf. I think he is very underrated in Leaf land. A lot of people, when he was signed, were up in arms. Why are you giving this guy 2 years? Why are you giving this guy any kind of money? He doesn't score. But I think what he did was finally stabilize at least one center position in the bottom 6 and does things defensively. And I joked about it. I said, why not put him on an OT, to start to get possession of the puck for the Leafs? And the guys did it. And
good call.
Me, I love him.
I like you taking credit for that one. I like that. That's a good one. I love taking credit for takes. Dylan looks like he's agreeing with you. Like you said it. I like Camp too, but I think that he's gone next year because Pontus is kind of just stolen his future role. Like
you like Pontus more than Camp, do you?
I don't know if I like him more. I'm a kind of a big Camp guy too. I think he's taken a bit of a step back recently, if I'm being honest. Like there've been just a few more moments where I've noticed him like from a negative standpoint. But that being said, he's played such a heavy, defensive zone role for them that when he fails to clear a puck and one goes in the back of the net, I'm way more likely to notice it. I just think Pontus is kind of like, if we're talking about the future of this team and what they're going to be able to do, you got to probably make a decision on those guys. One's a free agent, one's an RFA. If somebody wants to pay Camp and they view him as like a shutdown, middle 6 guy, I don't know if Toronto, given their cap space, like, you were talking earlier about guys, it's like he's probably the dude that goes and Pontus is the guy that stays. I think Pontus has a little bit more offensive upside. Yep. He's the younger dude. I don't think is as good of a defensive player as Camp is, but I don't think that you can have a bottom 6 moving forward of like your 2 centers are Pontus and Camp for the long haul. So you probably make a decision. But yeah, Pontus is another guy who I think is. Listen, that's the one good thing about the Leafs this year is like no one's really having a disappointing season. Like maybe, you'd make the case Matt Murray because he's hurt again and he came off of a bad one, but he performed pretty well when he was healthy, like ish. If you told me this is what you were going to get from Matt Murray, I'd say, all right, that's not like a disaster so far, right? Like, I think the question is actually more interesting when you're like, who's been the Leaf that's disappointed you?
That's fair.
Yeah, well, that was the next question coming up. I wanted you to name 3 guys that really kind of tick you off. And I mean, for everyone, it seems to be Pierre Engvall.
Yeah.
A lot of people are jumping on Morgan Riley's case right now as well.
He's number one.
Is he? Okay, well, go ahead. Spill your 3 guys. I want to know what the 3 guys are that you're not feeling.
Morgan Riley just scored his first goal, and he's an offensive defenseman making, over $7 million. So it's hard to be like, awesome. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, I think there's a conversation to be had that he shouldn't be the number 1 defenseman on the power play. You look at his numbers going back to 2020, he's actually been one of the least effective guys in the power play from a points perspective, like in the NHL. And I like a lot of Leaf fans believe he's this like stud at it, but it's not really true. I think that he's probably underappreciated in terms of like how important he is to that dressing room, and that he's a really well-liked guy. He's someone who really cares. He's someone who's also elevated his play come playoff time, which matters. But yeah, if anytime you hand out a long contract in year 1, the guy underwhelms, it's going to be terrifying, especially for, fans here where like we're always talking about the cap and being terrified of what happens with it. Like, we're cap obsessed. So yeah, Morgan Riley to me has to be number 1, because the expectation is that he's a top 2 defenseman. He's a number 2. And this year he's been like, not that. He's also been hurt. Like, it has not been a good year for him. Engvall is an interesting one because like, I think that he is a problem for what they're trying to accomplish in the playoffs. And like, this is where you get into regular season versus postseason. I think Engvall as a regular season player is fine. Like, you look at his analytics, they're solid. He's actually been really, really good for David Kampf this year. He's done it's hard to say that on his contract, he's like disappointed for what he's given you. I just worry about when you get into a postseason battle against a nasty team, for a guy that's played 17 playoff games and doesn't have a goal in them, that it's like, yeah, I think it's because he doesn't want to go to dirty areas, and I don't think he wants to get hit. I don't think that he will lay a hit. And I think that his lack of intensity in those moments when you need to be intense and you need to maintain your level and other guys kind of step it up, that he can hurt you. And so I think that's what fans see, is like, he's the embodiment of what people are terrified with this group come playoff time, which is that they don't have that like it factor. And so I think he soaks up a lot of shit that people don't want to throw at some of the other stars, right? And they see Engvall and they go, well, maybe some other guys have this, and so we're going to throw it at him. But yeah, if I'm the Leafs, or if I'm me, I'll just say, if the Leafs trade him come deadline time and they put him in a package because another team wants him and you can upgrade that spot, I would like totally be down for it.
The only thing that I guess a lot of people seen last year down the stretch, it wasn't in the playoffs, I'll give you that, but down the stretch last year, he was more physically engaged. He was winning puck battles along the boards. He was driving the net, like we've seen a few times.
You got to send me those clips, because like, I don't remember this. Like, you're trying to inception me with this. Like, I don't remember any of these things.
I'm not trying to inception you. Listen, Pierre Engvall is in our circle the same thing. It's the same thing with him as well. Our buddy producer Clark, who does the Rob Peterson show, he's huge on not pumping the tires of Pierre Engvall. But
I love
even
that.
he admitted
does
last
Rob
year,
Peterson. He's like, yeah, I am a middle of the country guy. Like, I got middle of the country values. Like, I am all about not this guy. It's like, I'm with you, bro. I'm with you, producer.
Yeah. So I look at Pierre Engvall and I say, okay, if you can bring, like we've seen it a few times this year so far, if you can bring that level of Pierre out in the playoffs where he drives the net, can do those things, great. But you don't get it consistently. And I agree with you.
I don't think
you can't have it consistently, you can't be on the team. What's that?
I don't think you can teach what he doesn't have. Like, no. I don't think that all of a sudden you can teach like a guy to be engaged in that way. I think you either have that dog in you or you don't. He's a naturally gifted guy, dude. He's 6'5". He can skate. Like, he can make a play. There's a reason why I think their coach has been harder on him at times, is because they just look at him and go, dude, if you would just have some bite, you're exactly what we need. And he just won't be it.
He doesn't have drive at all. Like, he doesn't have the hunt for the puck.
No, there's so many times where he can just finish a check, just fake it.
Yes.
Put a little bit of a body on somebody, and he just refuses it. It's like he's the king of the edges in the turn. Like, it's just, turn and look away, just doesn't do it. So for me, it's like, yeah, they'll probably end up keeping him. Maybe he has a big moment in the playoffs, but it's like, yeah, I think I'm not counting on it. I'm not counting on that happening for them this year. So I don't even know who the third would be. Like I'm trying to think about.
I jumped on Kerfoot last episode, and
Yeah.
him and producer Clark were on me, but I feel like he's somebody that come playoff time, he can get knocked around so easily when battling for the puck that I think in the bottom six, you need a bigger body guy that does those things.
Tilly, I'm with you. I'm not a Kerfoot guy.
Thank you.
So the organization loves Kerfoot, and I think they really value, especially given their center depth, that all of a sudden, again, in a pinch, he can drop into their top six and do something. Like they tried it with Pontus the other night. I think they should try it more, and it didn't really work out against Ottawa.
No.
They trust him, but yeah, for me, it's like, is Alex Kerfoot fine? Sure, he's fine. But on this team making $3.5 million, it's obviously been no bueno for.
That's
what
where I
gotten
always
back.
draw the thing. If he didn't have 3.5 beside his name, and he
Yeah,
had
but-
a lower
but he
cap hit,
does. But
yeah,
he
no,
does,
he does.
right?
Obviously, you live in
And
the
also,
reality. But
like,
I think if he was different cap hit, I think a lot of people would just tune off the negative for him because
Sure.
he'd bring what you need.
But that's the problem. Is like we don't live in that world, right? Like,
No.
and I'll put it this way: if we did a draft, like, all right, this guy has to score a goal, or you die, and we each went through the roster and we picked name. You know who'd be standing there at the very end?
Kerfoot,
yeah, Alex Kerfoot, because he's got hands of stone, and
Yeah.
I just do not trust the like. If so, James, you're talking about how you want to see this team improve the bottom six and how they need to improve the bottom six and try to get some. It's like, I think the reason that you feel that way and that a lot of people feel that way is, one, the Leafs got outscored again last year to Tampa. Like their stars can match the stars of Tampa. Goaltending, obviously, Toronto can't do anything about it, but Samsonov's been bright spot, and if he can be that in the playoffs, you feel pretty damn good about it, right? Like you'll take this version of Samsonov. Been a top 10 goalie in the league this year, which I think has also been a surprise to people. They just never get enough contribution from the guys down the lineup. It's like they beat even Jason Spezza, like, a guy who couldn't skate anymore to give them some of that bottom six punch. Like, who is going to get them a goal come playoff time? Kampf? Engvall? Like, Kerfoot with his stone hands? Like, where's it coming from? Where's the guy that you trust to give you something when the Stars get locked down or bogged down a little bit in those tough matchups? Like, they need somebody else. They need someone else who can either like drive a line or give you a little bit of faith that you're going to get a little bit of that. And they've missed on years of it where they could have had, the Corey Perrys, and they didn't decide to do that and whatever. They've tried to have the Wayne Simmonses of the world, and he's just, aged out of it. And it just, they need somebody down there. And that's the problem with Kerfoot is like, he makes 3.5 and he's fine if he's making less, but do you feel like you're going to get a goal from him? Or do you feel like all the guys in your bottom six are just out there to punt, kill clock, and hope that your Stars get back on the ice? I'd like one or two guys that you don't feel like they're just killing time.
No, I agree with you. And I mean, Sheldon Keefe, for his credit, has always wanted either his third or fourth line to be a defensive shutdown kind of line, which is fine. You can have one of those. But I do, like I've already said on the show, like I want the bottom six to have some snarl, a little upgrade. That's why I go back to Lafferty or Kari or any of those type of players that you can probably go pluck from a team.
Yeah, just a little bit of an identity, right? Like, just do like have a, like, this is what I'm talking about with like the Joey Andersons and the Bobby McMahons of the world, where it's like, I'm not trying, or, I don't want to shit on these guys because it's like, you're not supposed to be the identity of the Maple Leafs as the Stars, but I want to have bottom six guys where it's like, dude, that guy is nasty. Like, he's just mean, and you don't want to have to face that guy. Or it's like, that guy might chip in a goal, or that guy just has a ton of size. Like, have one thing that kind of stands out as special. And I feel like they just accumulate these dudes where it's like, he can skate fine. He's big enough, like but it's like, he can be defensively responsible and well coached, but that there's no defining attributes to so many of these guys. They're just like, they're just a guy.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap on this with you, I want to ask the question in your heart of hearts. I know it's a coin toss series, but can the Toronto Maple Leafs beat the Tampa Bay Lightning? And if they do, does that take the weight off their shoulders and they go on one of those runs that everyone talks about? We talked to Shukri Wright last night, who covers the Boston Bruins, and he seems to feel that weight comes off. It may just be the blinders coming off the horse, and they're going to go for a run.
Do I think it could happen? Of course I do. Why do you think? Like, how could you not? Like, what's the point? Like,
yeah, that's it.
Listen, I get it, because the older I get, the more like sour I become. Like, I look at fans of the Leafs that are like 23 years old and they're like, this team's sick. And I'm like, yeah,
No.
all right, fine. You know, I went through so many years where this team was just trash and never even had a hope and a hope and a prayer. So like, I'll always hold on to that. But I do fight the urge as you get older as a sports fan to just become defeatist and like not believe at all. Like, I don't ever want to get there where like you don't think your team has a chance to win. Like, I'll be realistic always, and I'll say the thing about the coin toss and that, you know, I'm never going to be the overconfident sports fan where I'm like, my team is going to do it. I don't understand that person. Like, I don't have that DNA. Like, I don't understand the person who's like, every year they believe, like they're the hashtag belief, you know, the passion. I like, it's going to happen. I can't get there. I'm not that person. But I think the reason why it's like hurt me for so long is that there is a part of me that's just like, man, I just want them to do it so badly once. Like, for the fans of this team, like I've said this before, like I have so many relationships that are built off of the Leafs. Like, I have friends where I became friends with them because you were like, oh, you're a Leaf fan, and it started a conversation between the two of you. You know, there's this shared bond between being sports fans, and like there's so many Leaf fans around the country that it's just like, God, it would make me so happy just to see everybody have that moment of relief, and then Leaf fans get to talk shit. I want Habs fans and Canucks fans and all the fans, Bruins, to all have to crawl into their basements in fear of just like seeing a Leaf fan out in public. Like, God, that would make me, like, nothing would make me happier. So yeah, like, of course I'm going to believe that they can get that done. Do I think it's like probable? No, but like, yeah, the Leafs are a good team. Like, we hate on them because they've been so disappointing, not because they suck. So yeah, if they get through and they beat Tampa, then everybody should be afraid, because Tampa went to the Stanley Cup final last year and it came down to, you know, again, a coin toss. So yeah, of course they could do it. They're good.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry. When Jake Muzzin comes back for the playoffs, we'll all be happy.
Yeah.
No, listen, on all seriousness, JD, I like the fact you come on and talk to us about the Leafs. Would love to obviously have you on towards the playoffs just to see where the team stacks up. Little caveat for the Boston Bruins. They have a hellacious schedule coming up from March 9th to April 2nd. They are going to be absolutely getting mollywopped. So
I will say this, though. Ray Bourque was on my show today, and he was like, I'm really glad that they're losing games. He was like, they need to lose some games. They can't just be front runners all year. And I went, I hate that that's probably true, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, if Ray Bourque says that, I'm like, yeah, I believe you. You know, shit, Ray Bourque, shit. Dylan, I gotta go check out the cards. I gotta go look at that account. I gotta go look at sports cards.
Why? Thank you.
I used to be a big guy on that, and like, yeah, and also, yeah, try Boxing Rock. All right, like, give me let me get going on that. Where do I get?
If you ever come out east, there'll be enough Boxing Rock to take you off your feet for a few days.
Well, it better be.
It's good, man. It's good.
So shout out to Boxing Rock. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. All I gotta say is, yeah, please subscribe to my podcast. Leave 5 stars if you can. Probably the same for you guys. Always helps everybody. So I always say that message.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I was have fun with you fellas. So yeah, hopefully we can end up doing it again.
I appreciate it, JD. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Offside Hockey Talk, where the Leafs and hockey come to talk.
Love it.